What's up, everybody? This is Skylar with Savage Truth 603. And while we're on this little hiatus, everybody's locked down. I figured this was a good time for me to get my my webcam setup going and my podcasting set up. I got some stuff I want to get into while I have a little bit of downtime. I want to explore cryptocurrency. I'm going to look into some deep web stuff. Like to talk to some people that know more about these things than I do. Obviously, we're going to talk about the virus and the upcoming impacts that we're going to have. Lots to talk about, so let's jump right into it. So obviously, one of the first subjects I wanted to get into is the coronavirus. I was following this virus way before anybody here was, and I was warning my friends when the media was saying, don't panic, there's nothing to worry about, everything's going to be fine, it's just like the flu. For those of you that are still saying it's just like the flu, you need to stop. For starters, this is not an influenza virus. It's a novel coronavirus. And what that means is that this coronavirus, there's different types of coronaviruses. This particular coronavirus comes from animals. And that's the reason that it's so dangerous to us, is because we don't have any antibodies to fight this off. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you about what I know, and I'm going to go through on my computer. We're going to look at some websites together and look at some information together, and I'm going to try to edit these into the video for the final production, if you will. Hopefully it comes out all right. I'm new to all this technology, so bear with me. .4% death rate worldwide, according to the WHO. But that number does not fully capture how deadly the virus can be, okay? That's kind of scary when they tell you 3.4% worldwide death rate, and the flu is 0.1% or between 1% and 0.1% deadly. 3.4% can be up to 30, almost 35 times deadlier. That's not even infection rates. That's just the death rate. So I want to talk about I got into it a little bit the other day when I made a video about the economic effects that are going to be realized through this virus scare, or through, whatever you want to call it. I mean, hopefully this doesn't wreak havoc on our society, and I think that obviously people staying inside and having as little contact with each other for a little while as possible is going to be the way that we prevent that. So let's do that. Obviously, I have no knowledge of anything except for what I read on the internet, just like everybody else. I do a lot more research than a lot of people do. I have a lot more, sources that I'll go to, and I don't know, take that for what it's worth, but most people just rely on what they see on their news feed, whether it be their Facebook news feed or their favorite news station, and they just kind of go with that. And I literally scour the internet and weigh my opinions based on what I find for information. And sometimes that information is just anecdotal. Sometimes it is just somebody saying, hey, I heard this, or hey, I know that. And you might think that that's a foolish way to do things, but unfortunately, with the way that our government lies to us, the way that all governments lie to their constituents, it's undeniably plausible that they will lie to us at any chance they get about something this serious. One point that I've made a number of times, if this was some sort of fear-mongering or scare tactic, if they intended to do this to us, they could do it every year with the flu. Every year they could scare us into our houses and say, guess what, guys, the flu's coming, everybody's going to die, go in your house, we have to do this for 8 weeks, blah, blah, blah. Or they could push it into oblivion if they wanted to. They could make it a permanent thing because everybody needs to be scared of influenza. I mean, look, 100,000 people a year die. Like, that's a lot of people. But they don't. Why? Look at the ramifications of what's happened with this virus. The economy, not just the United States economy, the world economy is tanking. Every country right now is in full-blown panic mode. Do you think that would be something that the government would want to do? I mean, we were literally setting records every day with the stock market. People were getting rich. the high-powered people and the people in the middle, anybody in the stock market, everybody who has a 401k saw their 401ks going up and up and up, and there was so many benefits to the way that things were going. Not to mention the president was, fulfilling his campaign promises. So if you think about it, it makes zero sense for the United States to want to sabotage our own economy. It makes zero sense for the United States to want to sabotage the world economy. I mean, you could say that possibly the Democrats would want to do that to ruin Trump's legacy, or to try to taint his presidency and say that he's done a poor job with his reactions, which, I mean, they already failed at that. They tried to call him a racist and a xenophobe because he shut down the borders, and I don't think anybody can disagree that that was the right move to make to try to stop the spread of this virus. So I guess that's like my logical reasoning, my reasonable side, thinking this through. A lot of people lost a lot of money because of this, like a lot of money, and there was evidence of certain senators that had been accused of selling off their stocks after some private briefings about that. But I was already warning people about this virus way before that happened. So if you choose to let the government leaders, if that's what you want to call them, if you choose to let them guide you through life and tell you when we have a problem, when we don't have a problem, if you allow them to be your only source of information, then I'm sorry, but that's your own fault. Like I said before, I do a ton of research. I scour the internet and now the deep web as well, looking for sources of information from all over the world. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes you have to dig and dig and dig. Sometimes you have to employ the resources of translators, or you have to use Google Translate for anything that's written text, and it takes a long time. And I do it because I don't trust our government, and I want to be ahead of anything like this. I told people weeks before we ran out of toilet paper that it was coming, and people thought I was crazy. And now, even still, out in California, I mean, around here it's really not bad, but out in California they still can't get toilet paper. They can get things like milk and eggs, and the food's coming back, but the toilet paper's still a problem, which I don't know why. I mean, I've already been over this. It doesn't make you shit. It doesn't make any sense. You can't eat toilet paper. Can't kill somebody with toilet paper. It is literally fucking pointless. So I guess now that's my logical brain. But my conspiracy brain says, why would they do it? What would the benefit be of this kind of pandemic, of this situation, this economic crisis that we were literally thrust into overnight? It was like night and day. I never expected the economic fallout to be quite this bad. I figured people would sell their stocks and get rid of stuff and cut back where they had to, but I didn't really expect to see the stock market plummet like it did. But it makes sense with all the turmoil that we have in the country above and beyond the virus, with the political turmoil and the elections. And so why? And I said in my last video that it was the day that they were talking about giving out these $1,000 stimulus checks. It was like the day that everybody really started to panic about the virus, and they started telling people they had to stay in, they should stay in their homes. It was a recommendation. No cities or states had been under any sort of mandatory shelter in place, or as it's commonly known as a lockdown, because that's exactly what it is when you're told to shelter in place and you are not allowed to leave, and that's enforced by a police state, then you're locked down and you're being held against your constitutional rights. Another subject for another time. But what fascinated me was the government's willingness to hand out money to every single person in the United States to try to stimulate the economy. And immediately I'm like, that's socialism. Our so-called conservative president suddenly just threw out this socialist idea. And I think, and of course they're talking about bailouts for, the airlines, and bailouts for these companies and that companies, that the ones that are, really drastically affected by this virus. Well, where's my business's bailout? Am I going to get millions of dollars because I have to sit home for the next few weeks because I'm self-employed? Yeah, I can go collect unemployment, I guess, if that's the road that I was to choose to go down, but that doesn't even, that people can't live off unemployment. It's a percentage of your pay. And most people in America live paycheck to paycheck. I fortunately had some money set aside, so it wasn't a problem for me. I stocked up on food, I stocked up on paper products, I stocked up on ammunition long before anybody was freaking out, and rightfully so. But anyways, back to the why of this. So when it first broke in China, and people were being welded into their buildings in Wuhan, my first thought was, this was done by the Chinese government, by the communist Chinese government, to stop democratic protesters. They were on the verge of losing their country, losing their power in their country to these young, woke, if that's what you want to call them, democratic protesters. They're tired of seeing their families suffer under this communist regime. People were being taken away by police and put in prison for trying to tell the rest of the world about this virus. So my immediate thought was, China did this to their own people on purpose. It's obvious. So everybody started asking me, is this retribution for the new trade deal that Trump, pushed with China, and the tariffs and all that stuff? And I thought to myself, like, that's a pretty plausible explanation. So the virus breaks in China, spreads around the world. People are told to shelter in place, or given restrictions. Restaurants around the entire country are shut down. Stores. The United States has come to a screeching halt. The United States economy, just everything, day-to-day life has come to a screeching halt. And then when they started talking about the giving out this money, and my first thought was socialism. Like, this is socialism. And then it went from, we got to give everybody $1,000 to now this bill that the Democrats just proposed, I think is giving everybody $3,000. And I'm sitting home not making any money right now, and I'm not okay with that. I wasn't okay with 1,000. I'm not okay with 3,000. This is going to come out of our tax money. Trillions of dollars. It's our national debt and our national deficit is absurdly, it's insurmountable is what it is. To add trillions of dollars in the name of socialism, it scares the hell out of me, because I said this the other day, the government will want their money back, and that will come in the form of taxes. So yeah, hooray for your $1,000 check or your $3,000 check now, but guess what? As soon as things straighten out, if they do straighten out, that $1,000 is gonna have a price tag on it, and if it's 0%, I would be astonished. But even if it is 0%, you're gonna have a hole to climb yourself out of, because if you're somebody who has been affected by the economy and is sitting home, like I could still be working, but I'm choosing not to for the next couple of weeks, because I don't want to pass the virus. I'm not really worried about getting it. I'm worried about passing it to other people, because I'm not really in the risk factors at all. So I'm staying home, and meanwhile I'm not making any money, which is fine. So to all the people who lost their jobs when they shut down the restaurants and basically, pulled the e-brake on the economy, yeah, obviously you need to collect right away. I'm sure a majority of you have kids, and everybody's got bills to pay, and the problem is that the money that they're going to start throwing around and giving everybody in the country is not not without a price tag. So it might help you in the moment to get $3,000, but your debt is not going to go down. You didn't earn that money, and it's money that has to be paid back. So on top of the $3,000 that the government's going to give us, some people who don't have money for their rent, don't have money for their utilities, the government has already said, we're going to, people can't kick you out of your house, people can't shut off your utilities, all this, we're going to take all these steps, and the government's going to protect you, and awesome, great. Well, those debts are going to continue to climb. And so if we ever do get our economy to start rolling again, now everybody in America is going to be under a crushing amount of debt. Even more than before with the school loans, even more than when the housing market crashed. This is going to be something that we can't run from. So to just throw money at people and expect it to be this fix-all, this solution is just, it's absurd. And all it's going to do is drive us to a more socialist state. If you think about it now, we're already at 35% tax rates, and a lot of people pay more than that in taxes. What do you think's going to happen? How do you think the government is going to get their money back? You're either not going to get a tax refund for the next 10 years, or they're going to increase our taxes on our wages. That's the only way to get their money back. So what are you going to do with your check? I wasn't really trying to get on a rant with this virus stuff because I feel like it's been beat to death. I really wish that I had started doing these videos back when I first found out about coronavirus and what it was doing to China. So once again, guys, I'm not a bootlicker. I don't worship the government. As a matter of fact, I have a huge problem with authority. That's why I'm a libertarian. I don't want to be told what to do by anybody. This is not a case where I feel like the government is telling us what to do to our own detriment. I understand that people's civil liberties are on the line, and the other day I didn't feel like they were, but the other day there were no mandatory shelter-in-place orders. Everything was suggestions by the CDC, by local governments, and now people's rights are being infringed, and that's a touchy subject because, again, when you're talking about the overall health of the country, then it comes down to the argument of vaccinations. Well, do you vaccinate your children? Because this is basically the same thing as a vaccination. We're doing this to prevent the spread of disease. Do you shit in a bucket and throw it out the window of your apartment every single time you need to go to the bathroom? No. Why do we do that? Because it's for the greater good. Because it will spread disease, and we're trying not to spread disease. So if you stop acting like a pampered little millennial for just a minute and you think about the advances we've made as a society, it's pretty easy to understand why maybe we should just take a few days off. Maybe we should just stay home with our families for a little while. It's not the end of the world. Alright guys, once again, this is Skylar with Savage Truth 603. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Soon enough I'll have a .onion, and you can find me on the deep web as well, where speech is still free.